Hello and welcome to the 30-minute version of episode 19. Marketing is eating itself from the inside. I'm Rohin Dharmakumar, one of your co-hosts. Your other co-host, Praveen Krishnan, has flown down to Australia to indulge in some behavior that I find both extremely curious and fascinating. He's watching a 5-day cricket test match between India and Australia. Back to today's episode. We published the full subscriber version of this on 28th November. It ran an hour and 10 minutes. Today, we're carrying a tightly edited 30-minute version of the same episode. We've tried to ensure that you get all the key parts of the full conversation in a tighter format. I think you'll like it. If you'd like to listen to the full version, including all the meandering side conversations, banter, and background, I'd urge you to become a subscriber. You can subscribe to just 2 by 2 on Apple Podcasts at a really great monthly price, or subscribe to the Ken's premium plan to get 2 by 2 bundled with the rest of the original feature stories, newsletters, infographics, and podcasts that we're known for.
Today's episode is about how the marketing function has been eating itself from the inside. Historically, in companies, marketing has always been about the long term. While a function like, say, sales was more about the near term, marketing owned the customer, what they wanted, their fears, their dreams, their vanities. Marketing was supposed to tell stories of customers back to the organization and in return, tell stories of the company back to customers and potential customers. However, today, in company after company, the marketing function has been getting sliced away, cut into parts, and becoming something else altogether. Marketing is eating itself from the inside. To discuss what changed, we have two wonderful guests. One who has been teaching marketing for decades, and the other who has been practicing it for decades. Our first guest is Professor YLR Moorthi, who teaches marketing, brand management, and marketing strategy at IIM Bangalore. These days, Professor Moorthi's work is focused on the impact of branding in different domains like IT and B2B marketing. Full disclosure, Professor YLR Moorthi taught me when I was in B school, so it's really special to have him on 2 by 2 to discuss something that I first originally learned from him. Our second guest is Deepali Nair, who is currently the Group Chief Marketing Officer of the CK Birla Group. She's had a long career in marketing across varied functions. She used to be the Chief Marketing Officer for India and South Asia at IBM, and prior to that, she headed marketing at organizations like IIFL and Mahindra Holidays. In today's episode, I asked Professor Moorthi and Deepali two simple questions. First, why is marketing dying? And two, how do we bring it back? It's not a great time to be a marketer. It's not a great time if you are working in marketing. It's not a great time for marketing companies. It's not a great time for understanding what consumers want. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Companies that were traditionally marketing strongholds are not doing very well right now. I remember at one point in time, FMCG companies used to be the bastions of marketing. And right now, FMCG companies are not doing really well. I'm giving a list of companies who are actually going through a pretty tough time in terms of revenue, in terms of market share, in terms of profits. Asian Paints, Nestle, HUL. All of them are telling different stories of how demand has changed. We didn't expect this to happen. And guidance of this was something that they could not give earlier. So it has caught them all by surprise. Some analysts have looked at this and said, well, it's okay that FMCG companies are going through this. This was obviously bound to happen because they're facing disruption from D2C companies. D2C companies that are also marketing companies are not doing that well. I'll give another list of companies. Mamaearth. Boat at one point in time was known to be a company that had a lot of marketing behind it. This year, its revenue has fallen by 20% year on year. In fact, in our Slack group at the Ken, we have been having this discussion, and my co host Rohin asked this question: can you think of a D2C company that is doing well right now? And Rohin, did you get any convincing answers?
Firstly, I did not expect you'll expose my private Slack communication on your podcast. And no, I think the answer to that from my colleagues was at scale, not really, because I think it comes to what do you define as a D2C company at scale? Is it 1,000 crores? Is it 500 crores, etc.? But yeah, that's broadly the answer that I got.
Before I go to my guest, let me say the second thing that's happening. Step one: marketing companies are not doing well. Not the big legacy FMCG companies, not the D2C companies. Second, we are not able to understand the Indian consumer. And this is something that's also relatively new. For a long time, we at least understood the Indian consumer. People were not mystified by what the Indian consumer wants and what the Indian consumer does not want. However, in two specific instances that I can think of, we are now completely surprised. First, nobody saw quick commerce coming. For a long time, everybody believed that the only way that people would buy would either they would go to Kirana stores or India would go into this modern retail kind of a setting. In fact, the CEOs of all of the large companies and leaders and executives believed that there is no way that the Indian consumer wants things to be delivered at this point. It's a need that does not exist. Another thing that's happening is events. Suddenly, everybody is now asking, why are Indians going so crazy for live events? We've seen examples of Coldplay tickets being sold out in less than a couple of minutes and people fighting it out. We have seen examples of other companies getting into live events in such a big way, and nobody understands why. So I present to you these two things: marketing companies not doing well and consumers not being understood. And I have a theory, and I think my theory is there's something going wrong with marketing. Now, I'm going to throw to both of my guests before I present my argument of what's going on. And I have Dipali with me. Dipali, I have said two things. Feel free to disagree with both of them. But if there is something that you want to add on or to agree,
Please, Dipali, disagree with both. Please.
please put your CMO hat and tell us what's going on. Why do we not understand consumers and what's going on?
So, Praveen, history is filled with examples of incumbents, missing the new consumer trends. I am told in folklore that I think Procter and Gamble saw Starbucks and said, it's not going anywhere. So the big coffee companies, missed the Starbucks trend. I was working, at the earliest days with BPL Mobile when the mobile phones had just started. I can tell you that nobody predicted that mobile phone with a camera is going to succeed. Uh, I will also tell you another trend. At the point of time that we had predicted the growth and done the business plans for mobile phones, I'm talking back in 95, 96, um, nobody has predicted the growth of the adoption of mobile phone the way it has happened and the factors that have happened. So if you're saying that marketers are missing big trends, there are enough examples in history that they've been missing it for the last 30, 40 years. It's not new. Is it a failing in the marketing system, though? Is it a failing only of marketing? I would like to argue, as a good marketer, that it's not just the failing of marketers. I think it's a failing of a system. Or is it that the consumer will always do something interesting, something new with inventions, with innovations? What my observation is that in the last 7, 8 years, we've dealt with two, uh, you know, black swan events: COVID and the rise of AI. And because of these two events, the way consumers have shifted preferences, I would imagine it is extremely difficult for any company to be able to predict absolutely everything that they would like or they won't like. Having said that, I will also admit that marketers today are not so wedded to the discipline of qualitative research, quantitative research, the way it used to happen, and therefore the consumer insighting. Maybe the D2C companies are too dependent on the data led transactions and do not go to the new consumer, do not do the consumer inciting work. And I use the word maybe. And maybe the old world companies that you referred to do not have the advantage of doing the data driven research, which the D2C companies,
Correct.
have tons of. So, so it's a mixed bag. And I don't see that as a trend. Now, on to the second thing. You were saying that FMCG companies are not doing well. Well, I think the world has shifted, and I think our own conditioning of segregating the industry into FMCG and D2C and e commerce has to shift. Because, I mean, just imagine when I did planning for, Safola years ago, we would do distribution channels, we would do five housewife segments. When I would do it for Marico, I would, look at my geographical markets. That's not the way planning should be done now. We're talking about real estate on a phone. That's the way planning needs to be done. So I'm not sure of the division that you're talking about. Well, look, the economy is doing well. That's a good factor for me. If the economy is doing well, there'll be certain sectors which will do well, and it's cyclical in nature. Infra sector is expected to do well for a period, and FMCG growth will also, come back. But to pin it and say it's highly correlated to the failing of marketing, I think maybe just let's leave it at a hypothesis level.
Oh, okay. We are going to not leave it at a hypothesis level. We are going to really examine that hypothesis over the next hour or so. But before that, I want to turn to Professor YLR Moorthi. Professor,
Yeah. So, she kind of exhausted my text.
Rohin, please back me up here. Has something happened to marketing right now?
I don't get why I'm being asked to back you up. Why can't I have an opinion of my own?
Go for it.
No, but seriously, one of the things that I want to talk about is the marketing function. And I think there's a very famous classic HBR article about has HR lost its seat at the boardroom or something. And that really talks about how the HR function over the years. And, it's a classic article because, classic articles always remain true over time, is it has not performed to its potential. It's not operating at the same level as the other lead functions. It's not answerable for strategy. It has gotten too tactical, etc. At some level, I wanted to, and the real reason I'm interested in this is because I feel personally, as someone who quote unquote majored in marketing as part of their MBA way back in 2001. But honestly, I don't think like anything that I studied in 2001 as part of marketing in the Kotlers and the various other books is relevant now. But that said, there used to be a time when people who headed marketing functions, and no disrespect, Dipali, since we're kind of talking about like a decadal, multi-decadal path where marketing functions, people who headed marketing functions, etc., were powerful. They decided the courses of companies, and like you said, what's happening with consumer behavior, what should we do, what kind of products should a company make. It seems to me today, over the last maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years, if you want to take it, if you look at it as a trend, it seems to be coming down. The strategic relevance of the marketing function or its ability to command that respect on the boardroom, just like I give the example of the HR function, seems to be in decline.
So,
right?
who has respect according to you?
Actually, if you ask me, we are sadly living in the cult of the founder, right? Where, in some senses, functional expertise has, in various functions, has gotten less and less relevant. And we are all kind of in this godlike awe of companies and their founders. And we really don't want to know anything much beyond. So that's a larger story, right? Coming back to marketing, I don't know. I just feel like there are fewer and fewer people out there as role models or people who are essentially saying things like, the insights that you mentioned, like, for example, crack cream or like, marketers who are able to state a point which is sometimes counterintuitive, and are not just growth marketers, which is essentially looking at what data they're getting from social media and mobile apps and all sorts of data collection platforms, and saying, hey, great, this is what the data tells us, this is what we should be doing, which is kind of like a loop where you just go
Rohin,
deeper and
I
deeper
have a
into. Yes, please,
I,
Dipali, feel
I have a
free.
very longish comment on this.
Yes, is it a rant? We love rants.
No,
Please,
I
Rand.
have
Yeah.
I have a longish comment. Okay, so if I were to divide this, one part of what Rohan is saying is that look, marketing may not have a seat on the board any longer, and to that I'm saying, when did they have it at all? I have not heard outside of FMCG companies, marketers ever making CEOs. Can you name one financial services company where marketer was a CEO? Can you name one IT company where a marketer was a CEO? Can you name too many marketers who are on the boards of companies, even if they are in 60s and 70s? So, did marketing ever, have a seat on the table? Is a question that I think I want to ask. Having said that, therefore, Rohin, where I'm refuting you is to say, look, it never was there, you know. So it's not a new phenomena.
I like how
The sec-
Dipali's argument is essentially either something is changing now, but this change was always happening and there is nothing new, or
yeah.
there does not have a seat at the table now, but this was always the case.
No, no, but
Yeah.
Dipali, the
Yeah,
point
but
that
okay,
you
let me but
made,
no. Praveen, you're provoking now, so therefore I will react to that.
I hope,
Please.
I
yeah, we
want
are not moving on from
I
this
want to
point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
observe, I want to put an
Yes.
observation onto what has changed. Okay.
Okay.
I think marketing in the last 15 years has gone through a huge metamorphosis. Okay. So, what Rohin was referring to, which is that, marketing being growth hacking, marketing being assisting sales, marketing doing performance marketing, marketing doing lead generation. So, there is this emergence of, chief business officers, chief growth officers, chief digital officers. What they're doing is a lot of the work that they do is the discipline of marketing, but it demonstrates itself differently inside organizations. The KPIs are sales, the KPIs are cost per lead, cost per sale, and things like those. Now, there are two ways of looking at that metamorphosis. Somebody like me was extremely happy about it because it actually gave me a seat on the table. Because, when I grew a business, and this is real number I'm talking about, from contributing 7% to the company top line, and I grew it to 15%, I had a seat on the table. I could actually ask, what changes are you making to the product and pricing? Before that, as a marketer, I could only recommend, I could only suggest, I could only, implore, right? So I think that was an opportunity that happened for in this metamorphosis. The second thing that changed was the ecosystem changed. You earlier had, let's say, a marketer had one market research agency and one communications agency. From when I started work, it disintegrated somewhere in the year 2000 into media agency, creative agency, PR agency, right? And it disintegrated again, in about 2010 into a digital media agency, digital creative agency, ATL creative agency, PR agency, and a digital PR agency, and whatnot. Okay. And you needed a Sutradhar. Ideally, the
Correct.
CMO should have been a Sutradhar. But what Rohan is proposing is right. What has happened is because this impacts the business so closely, the founder has become that Sutradhar.
Correct.
You know?
Okay.
Now,
Fantastic. Go on, please. No,
sorry.
finish your point,
So,
Dipali.
yeah, so I don't know if 30% of the job of the Sutradhar, which is the founder, that they're doing, is the CMO's job. According to me, it is, and that's my proposal. And therefore, yes, the role of the CMO and the job description of the CMO may have changed. But I'm not questioning marketing. Marketing's importance remains. But there is a new org design. There is a new org structure. There is a new job description that is assigned to, different roles. Just like the ecosystem changed, inside my organization also, I have a social media manager, I have a social media monitoring manager, I have a PR manager, I have a digital manager, I have a campaign manager, roles that did not exist 15 years ago. No? So, this metamorphosis may have uh, meant that the CMO role has got impacted, but not marketing as a function. It's just that
So
somebody else is doing the role.
So, Dipali, here's what I'm going to. Actually, you have taken and made my strongest arguments for me. Because fundamentally, what's happening is that I'm going to push and take that
But
to its
I didn't.
logical
But I
extreme.
didn't think that you and I were on different sides. Did you
Oh,
think
we'll
that?
find out in some time at the end of the podcast. We'll all end up in different places. So I think I'll say a couple of things. Number one, which is that I'm going to push that a little bit forward. You basically said that the role has metamorphosized. The word that I am using is that the entire function has been unbundled. It has been fragmented. And this is essentially partly because of all the complication that you're saying with respect to media agencies, brand agencies. You have all of these other things that's going on. But the other kind of fragmentation is happening is because the media itself has fragmented. There used to be a time when marketing used to be put some money in newspapers, put some money in radio, put some money in billboards, and put some money in television. Now there is things like, say, influencer marketing, social marketing, SEO, analytics, marketing technology software. So there is a buffet style expectation to dabble in everything. Now I want to get the professor in because
But
I'm
by
going to
the
get
way,
a
the
quote.
FMCG companies, I have to say this: FMCG companies do not do SEO. Okay.
That I don't think they would need to do SEO. But I'll just get the professor in. Now, there's a story that we did at the Ken. It's basically about the chief marketing officer, something that we have touched upon in our early discussion, which we'll go into a little bit later. But here's this quote, and I'm quoting Seema Chawla, who's a business consultant and a fractional CMO. She used to be the former CMO at Agio, Mattel, and Disney Plus Hotstar International. And this is what she's saying, quote, if a CMO has no control on the product, they are no different from an in-house communications team. Now, Professor, the reason I'm putting this to you is because I sat in your class and I listened to you teach me about the 4 P's of marketing. And I quote from our story, take the 4 P's of marketing. In e-commerce, product is handled now separately. It's no longer a part of marketing. Price is set by retailers. Place is determined by app stores and algorithms, which leaves that the marketing head has to focus only on promotion. So there is also this lack of power that's happening to marketing heads because things have changed.
You are just as powerful as you want to be, Praveen. That is the point. The point is very simply this. Marketers are paid at the end of the day for insights. That is what they are paid for. You can get all this information. Let me put it this way to you. If there is no CMO, we'll invent one. Let us put it that way. Which essentially means somebody will become Sutradhar, to use the words that she is. I don't know who it is. We'll find out who that is.
Can you define, what do you mean by someone will become Sutradhar? What is the Sutradhar thing?
You're telling me I don't have, all these things are, what was at one point of time a person to whom you can, from whom you can get some insight or get something saying that, okay, so this is the view of marketing, or this is what we have to do. Now what is happening, as you said, you have so many media fragments, so much of media fragmentation, platform fragmentation, all sorts of things. And then, the discipline itself actually getting fragmented. So all the more reason actually you'll have somebody, if that is done by a CEO, the CEO will become the CMO de facto. If it is or old-fashioned retro, after all doing this song and dance, if you can go back to CMO, how do we know? I mean, how do we know? We won't find a guy, boss, this is just getting too much. Remember, we went on outsourcing till we discovered COVID, that boss, we have to get out of China now. Yeah, we might actually get to a point where I think so much of fragmentation, where is the elephant in the room? Where is the elephant in the room? What's the insight? Do you have any insight? All these things put together, ultimately,
Professor,
could
could I interrupt you on this point that you make about insight? And you said something very interesting while you were speaking. You said you used to go to the marketing function or the marketing head for insight and asked, what should we do? Right? I feel increasingly the question that's being asked of marketing functions and heads is, what do you do or what did you do? So in some senses, it's become a more sales-driven, outcome-driven function, whereas insight, by definition, is not an immediate or a short-term thing. It is, tell us the direction where we should be going, tell us what insights you're seeing from consumers, tell us how we should think about products. And now, sadly, it's usually the other way around, where a marketing function is asked to justify its existence through sales, outcomes, etc. Do both of you feel that shift has happened from what should we do to what do you do for the marketing function?
I'm saying, why? Fine. Anybody can ask you anything. You can answer the question and say, that is not what I'm here for, if you don't mind. So you can just say that that's not really what I'm supposed to do. I'll tell you the sales numbers. I'll give you these things. I'll give you all the footprints that will tell you, that won't tell you the story. This is like the thing about Andhahastya Nyaya, right? You get the trunk, you get the tusk, you get the tail, but you don't get the elephant. I am telling you who the elephant is. I can give you the tail. Just call the CDO, he'll tell you. He reports to me, I have no issue. So, I can get all this information, but at the end of the day, there's one line that you want to hear. What should be done?
Dipali, can you talk from your perspective of being in the industry, whether this is happening? I'll give you one quote again to help you out. Again, this is from our story. This is Shobhajit Sen, who's the founding partner at A Prairie Consultants, who used to be. He has 21 years of experience as the marketing head for companies like GSK and Micromax, and works with a range of CMOs. And he says, and I quote, in the early days, we used to say that 40% of the thinking should be for today and 60% for tomorrow. But now it's 80% for today and only 20% for tomorrow if there is time. So
Sure.
essentially, I get what you're saying, but there is a certain amount of impatience, which is also what Rohin is bringing into organizations, maybe from leaders, maybe for a range of reasons, which comes back to my earlier point of something has fundamentally changed. And people keep asking marketers, what are you doing today, rather than this?
Let her get it. I'll come back later.
Yeah. Praveen, very well put by the two quotes that you've said. There is a grain of truth in that. The impatience and the focus on today is definitely there. It's not just though in the marketing function, it's with the founders, it's with the private equity investor, it's with the promoters because, they are competing in a space where D2C brands are growing, right? In a good way and in a bad way. I have got hired in a travel company because they weren't doing well in the face of, the then D2C travel companies who were doing extremely well on digital. So they hired me and said, look, can you help us fix it, right? I helped and fixed it, right? And we started doing better. But my role burgeoned so much that I got ulcers in my stomach. Because the role expanded, because like I said, the function has really expanded. Now, what is your org design? I mean, it is ultimately a talent problem also, right? It's also about what advice is the founder or the CEO getting, what questions he's getting asked by the board. Isn't the whole system becoming very today focused? The pressure, and this is, you've got case studies, and Prof will tell you this, right? Companies who are not listed on the stock markets over a long period of time have known to do better. They build brands better. Their brand valuation is better. And companies who have the pressure, founders also have it. They may not be listed on the stock market, but they have equal quarterly pressures. Companies which have pressures do sometimes get focused because of the whole ecosystem on the here and today. So when you're making this statement, or when the statement by by people who've been CMOs, when they're making the statement, they're talking about today. But my point is there a study being done systematically to say, okay, overall brand valuations are going down. Overall, in a 10-year period, nobody is able to build a grand brand like, a Lux or a L'Oreal or, a Surf. Because, that discipline of marketing and brand management is maybe, not being followed in the way it should have been. And that's my point. Maybe what is required, therefore, I may even agree with your hypothesis, right? But maybe the point is that we are looking at it only from the window of the last 24 months, and we don't have the vision or the crystal ball gazing opportunity of looking at it in 5 years' time to say, okay, how will this trend shape the industry? Maybe the industry will course correct.
Thank you for listening. And from all of us on the 2x2 team, Hari Krishna, producer and editor, Rajiv CN, sound engineer, Praveen Krishnan, co-host and cricket fanatic, and me, Rohin Dharmakumar, a very happy new year. I hope we continue to enjoy the privilege of having you as our listener in 2025 too. And if you haven't rated us yet on your favorite podcast platform, it would mean a lot to us if you could.